giggle.
Okay. Hold on.
Good morning. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We're so happy. It's a good day. It's Tuesday, the day that we talk about how to grow your business, how to navigate through different ups and downs and the different things that are out there, marketing and everything that we talk about every Tuesday on SoTellUs Time. So we are happy to be here with you guys. And I know you guys have probably already had a very productive Monday, got past the Mondays. We got past that. Now we're to Tuesday and it is time to crank. It is time to get in the right mindset. Today we're going to be talking about the why or the how, not the why versus the how, the why or the how, because you need both. And we're going to tell you what that means in just a second. Every successful company needs a why person and a how person. What does that mean? Well, we're going to tell you what that means because you need to know, are you the why person or are you the how person? And every successful company out there, and we're going to give you some of the best examples of huge companies. And this is what makes the difference. If you can get a why and a how person, this is what turns companies into billion-dollar businesses.
Yep, exactly.
And without both, you will never, ever create. And here's the thing is, we're going to give you these examples, and you're going to know one of the people in the company, and you probably will have never heard of the other person. And that's the point. They don't want to be heard of.
Yes.
Okay? So, Troy, let's jump in and talk about the why person and the how person so that we can determine for our listeners who they are.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll give you some examples of the characteristics of a why person. We'll start with that first. So the why person is the visionary. Right? You've got your head in the clouds. You're like, man, we're going to be this, we're going to grow and we're going to be this unicorn and this billion-dollar company and it's just going to happen, right? You're the visionary. You see where the company is going to go, the very best that it can become. Yeah. You focus on the big picture, not the little details. Mm-hmm. You like to push the limits of what the company can do. And if you have the how person in your company, you are pushing the how person out of their comfort zone.
Yes.
Right? When you start talking, they're like, ugh, because they're going, how are we going to do this? Mm-hmm. Right? But that's the why person. Yep. You care less about how much is this going to cost? Or, what are the numbers around this? I need to analyze this. You're more focused on the dream. Yeah. This is what the dream is, and we're going to get there no matter what.
The why person is a dreamer that is just focused on what the company can do in their mind or what the product is going to be. And they want to make that vision come true, right?
Yeah, I was actually talking with another business owner last night, and he was talking about his son who came and worked for him. And, his son's doing sales for his company. And he's like, the best thing about my son, and I told him this, is he never hears the word no. And as a salesperson,
salesman,
right? And as a visionary, right? As a why person, they don't hear no.
Right.
It's like, no doesn't exist to them, right? They're going to make it happen one way or another.
That's right.
So that's another way to think of it is if you don't hear no and you're just like, I'm doing it, then you're probably a why person.
Yeah.
So now let's go to the how person. The how person is the realist. Mm-hmm. Some might call them the pessimist in the company. It's like, they're the one who's always saying no.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we're going to go do this. No. All right, we're going to do this, and we're going to hit these numbers. No. We're going to go spend this money. No. Right? So
they are not risk takers.
Exactly.
The why person is a risk taker. The how person does not like risks.
Yep. Absolutely. So they're going to focus on the details and the processes. You know, when the why person says, we're going to grow to $1 billion business, the how person immediately says, how are we going to do that? What process are we going to play? How many employees do we need? How much money are we going to have to spend on advertising? How big is the office going to be? You know,
we don't have a system in place right now to handle all of that. So we're going to have to get a new system. So we're going to have to start doing the research to find out what system we need to use. You know, they're thinking through the vision. They're actually figuring out how to make the vision come true.
Yeah, the details of it, right? The how.
Yeah.
You know, they rein in the why person and about from what the dream is to what we can actually do.
Yeah.
You know, they don't just jump on board with the why person and be like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. No, they're going to be like, no. Let's step it back. $1 billion. Let's take it down to $100 million first.
Yeah. Well, how are we going to make our first 100,000?
Yeah, exactly. It might be that too. And they're going to care more about costs and numbers than about the dream.
Yep.
Right? So that's the difference between the why and the how. So let's give you a couple of examples. One example would be Apple. So in Apple, you had Steve Jobs.
Everybody knows him.
Right?
He's a why.
He is the why.
Yes.
Like if you've learned about his life, I'm trying to remember exactly the terminology they used, but basically he had this field, I think it was a distortion field, that, you know, you couldn't tell him that it couldn't be done.
Right.
Like he would say, we're going to do this, we're going to build this product, and it's going to do this and this and this. And his engineers would be like, no, it's not possible.
Well, they say, how are we going to do that, Steve? And he'd say, why are you asking me that? Figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. But they would be like, no, you can't do that. No, it's not possible. No, never one's ever done that before. But by the end, this distortion field he had, they would be like, yeah, we're going to do this. You know, then they'd walk out the door and they'd be like, how are we going to do this?
Oh, yeah. And if they came back, I mean, I remember seeing stories of like how they would come back, and if they couldn't figure out how to do it, he was like, you're gone.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get the guy. And then he'd look at the next guy and say, you're the lead developer now. Can you do it? And the guy just watched that dude get fired. And he'd be like, yeah, I can do it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know?
So Steve was the why.
Yep.
The how in the company in Apple was Steve Wozniak. Some of you might know his name. Most probably have never heard that name before.
Yeah, if you watch the couple different movies that have been made about him, you've at least probably heard of him because he was a character in it.
Yep, and he was the quiet, detail-oriented person behind who, you know, actually had to engineer what Steve Jobs came up with.
Yep.
So he was the how. Another company, very successful company, Southwest Airlines. You know, totally changed the airline industry. And the why guy was Herb Kelleher.
Yep.
You know, and he was like, we're going to launch this airline and it's going to be cheaper than everybody else. And we're going to, you know, and everyone's like, you're crazy. You know, it's like, oh, a bunch of cowboys flying airplanes. They'll never last.
Yeah, because it was all in Texas at that time.
Yeah.
When it first started.
You know, and actually, because I was in the airline industry, it was so funny because when I wanted to be an airline pilot, I would always tell people, oh, yeah, I think I'm going to fly for Southwest. And they would just laugh at me. They're like, Southwest? Are you kidding me? Why would you fly for that company?
Dude.
And I had a bunch of Southwest captains that lived on my street. So that was like, no, they have a great life. Like, they love their job. And then 9/11 happened.
Yep.
And all the other airlines started going into bankruptcy. And all of a sudden, it was amazing.
Yep.
Everybody wanted to fly for Southwest.
Yeah.
Right. But it was a guy who had a dream of completely changing the airline industry. And that was, you know, Herb.
Yep.
But he needed the how guy.
Correct.
Which was Gary Kelly, right? Who actually is the CEO right now of Southwest. He took over when Herb retired, but he was the how behind the scenes.
Yeah. He made it all happen.
Yeah. That actually...
And the thing is, but again, it doesn't take away from Steve Jobs, obviously. It doesn't take away from Herb, because there was a story of Southwest, and they had 4 planes, but they were struggling.
Yeah.
And they actually had to sell one of their planes in order to keep the company going.
Oh, wow.
And so what they could do is they could either cut out routes, which would still hurt the company because then they just weren't making as much money. Or they could figure out how to do the same amount of routes, but with only 3 planes where they previously had 4. And it was actually Herb who came up with the idea and then sold it to the staff, to all of the employees, about this 10-minute turnaround. They called it the 10-minute turnaround.
Yeah.
And so they get a plane landed, deboarded, cleaned, and reboarded faster than any other airline out there.
Oh, yeah.
And that actually saved the company, that they were able to still maintain the same amount of routes with less planes. And then if you think about that, as they grew and had more planes, they kept that same mentality, and they were able to do even more routes and get more flights in with as they grew. And the thing was, is Herb he was the why guy. He was the salesman.
Yes.
He was the visionary. So he went to the staff and he actually convinced the staff that this was good for them. Them working harder and faster was good for them. It's what they wanted. Because he talked about how, like, a lot of times they were, flying somewhere and then turning around and just flying another place. And they weren't, like these other airlines where they would fly somewhere, stay the night, get on a different plane the next day, fly that plane back. No, they were staying for multiple legs on the same planes. And so he convinced them with his big vision and his dream and his excitement that this was the way they wanted it to be. They wanted to be in a clean environment. They wanted to be, and he sold the vision to the employees, who then made it happen.
Exactly.
But without her being able to do that, the how guy probably wouldn't have been able to sell the excitement.
No, the how guy would have been like, well, we just have to do less routes.
Yeah. He would just be like, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
We got to do less routes. And that's the thing.
Right.
That's why we said this is not why versus how.
Yeah.
It's, why or how, as far as which is you, but you really need both. What's why and how.
Correct.
Right? So that's a great example there.
And I want you guys thinking about, who are you? Who are you in the company during this, okay?
Yep. So next one is Disney. Mm-hmm. Most people probably don't even know that there was another Disney out there. We all know about Walt Disney.
Everybody knows Walt.
He was the why.
The visionary.
Yes. So there was also this guy named Roy Disney, who was his older brother by like 8 years. And he was the how.
Yeah. In fact, Walt was quoted saying, "If it wasn't for Roy, I would have gone bankrupt years ago by bouncing checks."
Yeah.
That would never clear. Because he goes, I never cared about how much money was in the bank. I didn't care. These other guys, Steve, probably, and a lot of us have this, right? And we'll talk about this in a second, but you can be both.
Yes.
You're going to be more dominant in one direction, but you are going to be, a lot of people are both. Steve Jobs, definitely the why guy, but still had how in him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was a developer, right?
Yes.
He was a programmer. Same thing with Herb and Gary. I mean, they both had a little bit of... They both had the vision. In fact, that's why Gary took over as CEO of Southwest, because he really had that vision. But when it comes to Walt and Roy, Walt was 100% only why. No how. Did not care about numbers, did not care about anything. I mean, he would be broke and living in this tiny little dumpy apartment, barely making anything, drawing this vision that he had, right? He didn't care about money. He didn't care about food, eating. He was so obsessed with the why. That's all that mattered. Without Roy, there would be no Disney.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so now the question is, there's a couple of great examples for you. The question is, what are you?
Yeah.
And again, like Trevor said, it doesn't mean you have to be completely one way or the other, but what's your more dominant trait?
Yeah.
Are you the why person or are you the how person?
Yeah, in our company, obviously, I am more of the why. When Ron was around, he was 100% why. He was Walt. He was Walt Disney, right? And Troy was Roy, and I was like the middle guy. I was kind of like Troy was like, no. And Ron was like, we're doing it. Ron would come in with these crazy ideas. He would sell crap we didn't have, classic why guy. And then he would come in and he would be like, we got to do this. I just sold this guy this. And Troy would go, you did what? And he would start having heart palpitations.
Yes.
And he would start sweating and he would be like, you're going to ruin us. And then I would be like, okay, we've got to like come together and figure out how are we gonna do this, right? We're gonna get, and then now that Ron's gone, I am obviously more of the why guy, and so it was hard for Troy when Ron and I were both there because I am a why. So we would gang up on the how guy. We'd be like, and we'd beat him up. We'd be like, you can't say no because both of us are saying yes. But as Ron's left, I am stepped into that more of the why guy with more how over the last 20 years. Troy's definitely taught me the importance of the how. But also in flip, Troy has now learned more why. He has developed more why personality traits and still is dominant in the how.
Yeah.
But we actually are really good for each other because I feel like that's, if you can do that, if you've got two people, if you got a why and a how, but you can help each other see the vision for both, that is an amazing combination.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, anyways.
Yeah. So figure out what you are, right? First. So maybe you're the why guy, and that's awesome. So if you're a solo entrepreneur, right?
Oh, man. Yeah.
And it's just you, then you've got to figure out how to get some of that other side in there. Because, like Trevor said with Walt Disney, if it was just him, he would have been bankrupt, living on the streets, drawing pictures.
Correct.
So you've got to kind of create both sides of it because it's just you.
Yep.
So there's a couple of ways you can do that. One is you can work on creating systems or habits that's gonna bring in that other type into your decisions. So if you're the why guy, create systems that force you to pay attention to the details. Yeah. Right? Or create habits that force you to pay attention to the details so that you get that other perspective in the business.
Yep.
If you're the how guy, then you got to start putting things in place, that help you dream and look towards the future and stretch yourself to do things that you're uncomfortable with.
Yes.
Right? So
vision boards, to be honest, it's really for the how people, it's just taking that leap. And so how do you get yourself to take the leap? So maybe make that vision board, put up your goals, see your goals in the mirror every single day because you're going against your nature. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it's harder for the how to develop why than it is for the why to get the how, because I like see the dream and I get excited and I'm all amped up and I get other people excited about it. But I do understand that it's got to get done somehow, right? It's got to get done somehow. So I'm going to look at like, okay, and I say it's easier also because it's like I can buy a program, right? I can pay for a system that can help with some automation or help me do this stuff. For the how guy, it's all up here. It's all up here. It's about allowing yourself to take that leap and like do something that is just totally 100% against what's ingrained in you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, that's a very good point. So when it comes to that side of it, one of the ways that the how can get out of their head and take the risks is get an advisor or a consultant who's going to help you focus on that other side. So it may not be somebody you pay. It may just be someone that you trust, that's successful in business, that they're more of the why personality, and you just go to them and say, hey, look, I would appreciate your advice. If you were in my shoes and you were going to take a risk, what would you do? How would you, where do you see, if you were to say to my company, I can see your company going to here, where would you see my company go? Stretching the limits. And then, so you get other people's perspectives to help you create your vision for the company.
And that's funny too, because like groups, for instance, like joining a group, I see a lot of, we have, spoken at these events where it's a lot of these groups, like it's a Genius Network, right? So you join this group because you want to help your business grow and everything like that, or you join the Inner Circle with ClickFunnels or whatever it is. You join these different groups because you need to make that next step. And it's funny because I see in these groups a lot of times it's a lot of hows. It's a lot of the hows. I mean, because the visionary, the why, you can burn hot and you can burn fast.
Yes.
You know, and so I've actually seen the whys burn out of these groups where it's super beneficial. So I guess I'm just throwing one in there. I don't know if you have this on your list, but I'm throwing, in my hat in the ring here for the how people, because I want you to succeed, that like maybe joining a group.
Yeah.
That is a board of advisors, right? A group of advisors, a group that you're going to go to and they're going to help you look at your business and you're going to look at their business, and it's, a collective.
Yeah.
And it's been very good. I've seen it be very good for the hows over the years.
Yep, absolutely. And those groups are good for the whys too.
They are.
Because what they see is they'll see the success of the other people in the group and they'll realize, okay, they're not just a visionary, they're executing.
Correct.
Right? Or they have somebody who's executing.
Correct.
So it's definitely helpful. So yeah, being able to get outside, especially if you're by yourself, it's so hard to make a decision when there's nobody to bounce that, those ideas off of.
Yeah.
Right? And to be able to see past what your normal limitations would be.
Right.
So then the other thing is, if you have employees or you have partners, it's a little bit different. You can determine who is a natural fit for the why, who is a natural fit for the how, and then you can start dividing out your tasks accordingly. So it may be like Trevor and I are partners, right? So we know our strengths and we divide out the tasks in the company accordingly.
Yep.
If you don't have a partner, I'm not saying you have to go out and get a partner. You can use an employee.
Yep.
You can have an employee that is the opposite of you, and they can take on that role, and then you give those tasks over to them.
And a perfect example, which we've talked about a million times, that pops into my mind is Senjim. Senjim's a perfect example of this, that he did a great job building that company.
Yep.
He built it up and he ran it and he did the why and the how, right? He was doing both, just like we have had to learn how to do, right? The why and the how. But at some point he realized he needed to focus more on the why.
Yep.
As he got to a certain level, he said, it's not going to go to the next level until I focus on the why. So he brought in a CEO to run it, and he was the how.
Yeah.
He was the how, and then he went back to just being the why. And they're continuing to grow, and they've built even new products now and stuff, and it's super awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the thing. If you're a solo entrepreneur now, at some point, to grow the business and to get bigger, you're going to have to hire people to come in and help do that. And so one of the first hires you should be looking at is that opposite personality, the how or the why, right? And again, you can have a why who is an employee of the company. You can have a salesperson that's like, man, we are going to do this and we're going to sell this. And, it doesn't have to be an owner necessarily.
Absolutely.
Right? But you work together on it. Okay. So let's get to anything else you want to go over, Trevor, before we get to the homework?
Yeah, I have a couple of other things. I'll just give an example of like a real world, because of course we talked about Apple, Southwest, Disney, huge billion-dollar companies. And that's the key is they have the why and the how, and that's how they became that big. But a more real world, example would be dentists.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. Dentists just want to do what they do. They're the why, which is they want to, really the why just wants to do what he wants to do. That's part of it. Like, for instance, Disney. He just wanted to draw and he wanted to create. He didn't want to deal with anything else.
Yeah, selling tickets.
Yeah, he didn't want to sell tickets. He didn't want to, make merchandise. Roy literally was the one that got merchandise deals so that they were making little, stuffed animals and all these action figures of their stuff. Dentists just want to do what dentists do, which is clean teeth, fix cavities, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so they usually, and here's where they make their mistake, and this is why I brought up dentists, because I don't want you guys to do the same thing. They will take their receptionist and they will that's worked for them for a little while, and they will turn her magically, like with their little fairy wand, boo, into the manager that's supposed to do all the how. Now, this person, just because they've been answering the phones and taking care of some things up front, doesn't mean they're the how. And doesn't mean they're qualified to be the how. And that's why you see dentists' office fail often.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, at one point, unfortunately, suicide rates, like dentists was the highest of all other businesses in suicide. And so don't do that. Be cautious as you're looking at your companies with this and who you are and what you need, because you got to be really careful who you put in place. Yes. We have seen so many companies fall apart because of partnerships and things like that. Now, something interesting about the why and the how. The statistics show that actually the why and how person usually is either family or best friends. And in that case of each example, Steve and Steve, both Steves, they were best friends in college. Yep. Okay. And the reason for this is because you have, even though you see things completely differently, you have similar mindsets. So the reason family comes together and this works is because you were raised similarly. Yep. The reason that best friends work is because you're best friends for that reason, that you get along really well. Even though you see things completely differently, you still have a commonality, right, in your mindset. So same thing with Herb and Gary. I think actually Gary was Herb's divorce lawyer. So, but they were really
common
good.
Bond on the battleground.
Common bond of getting rid of them ex-wives, man. You know, and then Walt and Roy were family, obviously. So just something to think about. A lot of people stay away from doing business with family, and in a lot of cases, it's a good idea. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys the psychology behind of who the why and the how are, and that might help you think of who you could be bringing in to help with that. So,
and that is really important. I really appreciate that you brought up the dentist thing. Yeah. You know, the example there, because it's both ways. If you get the wrong how person, you're going to fail. Yes. If you get the wrong why person, oh my gosh, who has the wrong dream that is not, you know, attainable or is not the right direction for your company, you're going to fail. Correct. Right? So that's why you've got to have both, and they've got to be aligned. Yes. You know, so that you can actually be successful. Like the why person, if they don't have enough how in them, like I have enough how. I've told you guys, like I've really learned to appreciate the numbers and the processes that we create in order to make it work, because I've realized without the how, there is no why. It's not going to move forward. But if you don't have enough how in you, the why person shouldn't even have a company credit card. Like all the time I am buying things because I'm like always like, hey, we need new lights for the show, and Troy would never buy any of this stuff. He wouldn't care about it. Troy would never have started a podcast because Troy's like, he doesn't want to be on camera. Exactly. Troy would never have started speaking. But see, again, Troy has learned more of the why side. So he gets up in front of thousands of people and speaks at events, even though he would rather be like Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. A lot of people don't realize he has a business partner. Had for a while. Had a business. I mean, that dude screws everybody that he ever comes in contact with. And I just thought of such a naughty joke, and I won't tell it. But anyways, the dude screws everybody, including his own business partner. But that dude made tons of money being the how guy. And nobody knows his name. And nobody knows his name. I think he freaking lives in India or something like that. Yeah. Or he's somewhere. I don't know. I don't even think he lives in the United States. But perfect example. Troy would love to be that. He would love to just hide in the background. Absolutely. Run things, make sure things are working, make sure we're staying within budgets and all of this stuff. And he would rather me go out and do all the public face stuff. And then I am obviously the complete opposite of that. I will do the face stuff. I will make the videos, and I'll be like, hey, we got to start a podcast. We've got to do this. We've got to start making videos. I'm ordering stuff all the time. Here's new microphones for new videos we're going to be making.
and I'm thinking about all these little things and doing all the stuff. I mean, Troy would never have gone out and spent the money that I did on these microphones and this switchboard and all this, but it improved
Yes.
this podcast, and it's cool to see that as we work together, but I rein it in. I'm not out there just, charging tens of thousands of dollars and putting us in the hole.
Right.
And we have so many examples of that where somebody brought on, we had a guy that owned a securities company, built it up, and it did millions. He made millions and millions of dollars a year, and kind of really was at a point where he got to sit back and just enjoy the money coming in. He had a bunch of employees out there knocking doors, doing the stuff, and his brother came to him and needed a job. Yeah. And he didn't just bring his brother in to work for him. He said, you know what? I love you. You're my brother. You've got these great qualities. You're going to come in and I'm going to make you a business partner. He made him a partner. He gave him 50% of the company. Very generous man.
Yeah.
The brother proceeded to go out and make deals that he didn't know about, the original owner didn't know about, went out and got loans and credit cards and all this stuff and racked up tons of debt and made deals that they couldn't
fulfill on.
Yeah, they couldn't produce, right, and perform. And anyways, it came back that everything was going to fall apart. All because this guy went out and did this. And so you've got to be able to trust the person that you put in place for whatever the why or the how or whatever it is. But just look at it and figure out, if you're a solo entrepreneur, you need to figure out how to if you're the why, figure out how to become more of the how. And if you're the how, you need to figure out how to become more of the why. And then if you have your partner, your business partner, you guys should sit down and determine together what you are. And then magnify that. Let that person really be the why and let that person really be the how, but also learn from each other and take it in. And then you guys are going to be able to create something that's very solid. And
there you go.
Yep, that's it. All right. That was kind of a long one, even though it was a very simple one. But it was fun because it's great information. So I hope you guys really enjoyed it. We will catch you guys on the next episode of SoTellUs Time. As always, love our stuff, share our stuff, check us out on YouTube, and we will catch you guys next Tuesday.